Hey everyone, we got something a little interesting for you today. This we have here as a Carter 947S. It's 41 to 51 Buick, just the model 70. And we also have an AC 520, which also fits the 41 to 51 Buick, with a different cover on it on the top. One that's similar to this, it becomes a 530, which fits the 41 to 51 Buick Model 70. This is an AC. This is a Carter. Arms. This comes out straight. The Carter one uses a little slide deal on the top to contact the camshaft. This one weighs 4 pounds. This one weighs 2 pounds. They both do basically the same thing. Not basically, they both do the same thing, only with a different top vacuum cover. It changes this into a different number. AC did a lot of that back then. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to freshen up the Carter one. In a previous video I did a video on just that. Just this top cover, which is this one here, showing you how to change these. Now if I was to put this way, if I was to change it from left to right, to front to back, it's the same pump that would fit on a Packard. Just this top half anyway. The rest of it would be different. Well, anyway, let's go and freshen this one here up. This one had some issues in the past, as you can see right in here. Looks like the casting might have been broken at one time, and it's been patched with probably with JB weld. And I'm gonna guess that the pin was stuck in there, and they had to drill this side of it to knock the pin out, because the pin wouldn't slide through. Yeah, it happens a lot on Carters. AC uses a different setup, where they have a what I call a D-washer. The pin goes through, and then this is peened over, just to keep the pin from sliding out. Okay, enough with that. We'll be back shortly. Okay, if you're going to do this at home, you want to buy a kit from us. Look right around on this mounting flange, and you'll see numbers stamped into it. I don't think you're going to be able to see that, but it says M947S. If you give that to that number to the person that answers the phone, along with your application, they'll be able to set you up with a kit. We always want to start with the vacuum side first, then the fuel side. It helps if you have a vise to clamp it into. That way you're not flopping around on a bench somewhere. We're going to remove, we got 10 screws here. We're going to remove 9 of them. Be careful on the last one. There's a very strong spring underneath this cover. I've taken 8 of the screws out so far, and the cover's already starting to pop up. Like I said, be careful. Sometimes they get stuck and they give you a false sense of security, I guess you'd call it. That's the spring is under there. It's got the tension of a valve spring in your engine. Inlet and outlet valves, the rest of it's underneath here. Now these vacuum diaphragms just pull straight up. This is the push rod. And down inside we have 2 things. We've got a seal that's right in the center. And you also got this little cover here. Just pry it up. It's aluminum. It'll bend. And then usually down inside of this section here, there is like a filter. It looks like horsehair, and it's there for a couple of reasons. If any oil gets up in the top here, it tends to leak out. That hair there will slow it down. It also keeps the bees from going in and building a nest inside of here. Again, flip it over, and it's one thing I forgot to tell you. While that was on, we want to mark the location on how this thing sits in here. I didn't do it, but I know how it went. You can scribe it between the 2 castings. Take a picture of it, draw a picture of it, whatever you want to do, as long as you can get it back on without putting it on backwards. Same thing with this fuel section. First thing you want to do is mark it so that you get the location of everything. These two pieces come separate. It can go on wrong. The pump won't work, but it will go on wrong. So you want to mark straight down, mark the 2 castings. Anyway, we got another 8 screws on this side. Now the spring that's underneath is between the diaphragm and the body, so you don't have to worry about it throwing the casting up in the air. All it's going to do is pop up just a little bit. Here's the last screw. As you can see, it didn't pop up. If it doesn't, take a putty knife, set it in between the casting and the diaphragm. Just keep it until it pops up. Like I said, it doesn't go any further than that. These are inlet, 2 outlet valves. Now, somebody obviously has been in here before, because usually this doesn't have a nut on the top of it. It's got, it's swedged. Next step is to take this spring out. Sometimes it can be tough, sometimes not so tough. And a lot of these Carter, the pins that go through, there's a little slot right in the center. And there's usually when there's that kind of a slot, there's a horseshoe clip that goes in there. In the event that the plug comes out, the pin won't slide out. But this doesn't have one of the clips in there, so all we have to do is take that soft plug out. Use the chisel, get on the side of it. Just keep working at it, it'll come out. And that's what holds the pin in. Now sometimes, this one's going to do it. Get a pair of needle nose pliers, grab the pin. And slide it out. This is that groove I was talking about earlier. That there can be a clip in there. Pressure on the arm, on the diaphragm, and the arm will slide out. Here's your diaphragm assembly. Now this spring is what controls the pressure. Now this is ready to be glass beaded. Take all that paint off. And next order of business is this fuel section. You want to remove these two screws. And then a couple of taps will separate the two pieces. This is what they call a pulsator diaphragm. This is an interesting thing. Carter puts a screen in here so that nothing gets down into the valves. But if it plugs up, it stops working. The only way to get at it is to take it all the way apart to like I just showed you. Weird. Removing these valves. Get a thin punch. And we want to tap lightly on the centers. There's two of the pieces. Throw them away, you're not going to use them. The valve plate. By the way, this one is out of the rock. Same thing with removing the other one, that's center. Lightly tap. If you don't have a punch like that, use a finish nail. The other end of a finish nail. Now this one here, instead of trying to take drill holes and pop these out, like I showed you in the other video, if you didn't see it, it's okay. Support it, use that same punch that you did before, and you want to hit the center of this. Once it gets out and the valve is no longer in it, keep tapping. And you'll drive that freeze plug out. Here's the pieces that you're not going to use. Now the other one, this didn't go so easy in my other video. We want to get down inside of here, and we want to pry this out. Just keep prying at it, you'll get it. I wish it went that easier in the other one when I fought with it. There's the pieces, throw them away. That's the seat, and there's the seat for this. Okay, it looks like I've got everything apart. A lot of times you'll get this vacuum set up here. There'll be a nut at the top. Just unscrew the nut, take it all apart. If you get one that's like this, what you're going to have to do is grind off the top, this end of this, because you need that washer underneath it. You're also going to need this washer. Not dishwasher, this washer. Okay, I'm going to go clean this stuff up, and I'll be back with some nice clean pieces. Okay, remember earlier I mentioned having to grind this off. You grind off the little end on it, and knock that through. You're knocking the pull rod out. Because you want to save that washer, not necessarily the top one. You're going to need these two plates. This is one of the very few, if not the only, kit that we ask you to reuse some of the old parts. You want to clean this up, get all the grease and what have you off it. You're going to have to drill this out to a 1/4 inch. Same thing with the two plates. Another thing I forgot to mention, when I was taking this one apart, this side here, when I had you pop out the valve, the top of the valve, and what I neglected to tell you was to just keep driving it through, and you'll knock the other washer out, the other freeze plug, to get to the other valve. No big deal, it's just something that I forgot to mention. And like I said, you're gonna have to drill out at least one of these washers to 1/4 inch. Same thing with the top and the bottom plate. You got to drill the center hole. And lucky for me, I've already done that. And see, I put on new plates so I don't have to drill them out. But you do. We might as well put this plate, that vacuum diaphragm together. Put the washer on. This diaphragm will come in the kit. Put the other plate on, and you'll get one of these Bellevues and a paper washer. Put the washer on, put the Bellevue on, and you'll also get a nut. No need to put a lock washer on it because the Bellevue would act as a lock washer. It puts pressure on it. And just tighten it down. Remember, you don't have to kill it, just make it tight. Make the Bellevue flat. You'll get the diaphragm assembly in the kit. You'll get pulsator diaphragm to replace the old crappy one. When you knock out that valve out of that side, that's the freeze plug, they also stick a filter in there. Throw that away, you don't need it. You know, we can assemble the valves. We've got a valve plate that goes in first, the spring, and the rivet. Get your punch, set that rivet right in the hole, and just start tapping it down. We want it to come through 1/8 to 1/16 of an inch, as long as it comes through it. And then do the same thing for the other two valves. Once you get all the valves in, you want to put the pulsator diaphragm, you want to block off this area. Leave this open. Now check your reference marks so that this goes back on the way that it came off. You line up the holes, put the screws in, and tighten them down. You want to make sure these are good and tight. We don't need any leaks. This part's all set. Move on to the vacuum. Again, we want to make sure that the seat area for the valves is nice and clean. If you have to, get a piece of towel, put a piece of sticky paper, sandpaper on the end of it, put it in there and just spin it a few times. In case there's any burrs in there, it'll clean them off. You want to put your valves in the same way you did it on on the fuel side. Only this, you want to put the rubber plate in first, then the spring, then the rivet. Once that valve is all pressed in there good, take your freeze plug, and using the ball end, give it a couple of whacks. It seals. Again, same thing with this side. The plate, the spring, and the rivet. One of the things to not forget is to make sure that this surface is flat. Run it on a belt sander, run it on a piece of sandpaper on a piece of glass, or a nice and flat piece of wood, but make sure that all these surfaces are flat. The one between these two, around here, and while you're at it, do the front face so that it sits flat against the block. No leaks. Before we go any further, let's put this seal back in when it comes in the kit. Don't forget it, or you're going to have a big leak. And you can put, I'll tell you what I do, is I put a piece of scruffy pad, and I just cut up a piece of this, fold it, stick it down inside there, and it does the same thing that that hair would do. Also, what you got to watch before you put this in there is there's a little metal there's a wire that sits down inside here that holds it in. And I may have cut this wrong. Let's see. We're just going to stuff it down in there. Put the wire back in. It just goes down below the surface. Easier to do it this way. Tap this back in. Then take your punch that you used earlier and just dent the casting. You'll see it in the other spots. Just to make sure that it stays there. Not going anywhere. Put your diaphragm assembly in. You're going to push it down so that you can get the arm on the pull rod. And while that's down there, we're going to slide the pin in, move it around, and it'll pop in. Push it down until it sits. And see, they had drilled out the other side. They drilled this out, and they drilled a little crooked. So what I'm going to do is, you shouldn't have a problem, but I'm going to run some JB Weld and fill up that hole. Also, remember that blob of JB Weld that was on there? It's because they cracked the casting. So we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to fill this up with JB Weld and seal it up. JB Weld works great. Put the plug in. Couple good hits, it'll seat. And install your spring. Again, sometimes this doesn't go as planned. And sometimes it does. It's in there. Now we're going to assemble the fuel side first, and then the vacuum side last. Find your reference mark. Out where it goes. Get some screws and just start them going through the diaphragm. Just catch it running a couple of threads down. Sometimes getting these things caught, I shouldn't say caught, but getting them through the diaphragm can be a little tricky. Only because when Carter designed these, let's see if you can see it in the old one. No. There's a lot of flex in this, and the diaphragms that we have made, the holes, the bolt circle is a little bit wider, only because there's so much flex that Carter built into their diaphragms, and you'll get the impression by starting it, when you're putting it together, that the diaphragm is wrong, when in fact it isn't. And in order to get it caught, sometimes you have to use the arm, pull the arm up, and by pulling it up it draws the diaphragm down inside, and the diaphragm will actually, the holes will line up. And lucky for me, this isn't the case with this particular one. Anyways, you want to run these screws down. Don't tighten them up. Just run them down about halfway. Like I said, don't run them all the way down. Now you want to take your adjustable wrench, put it on the arm, and pull that down as far as it will go. Now tighten up the screws. Okay. Pull this up as far as it'll go, and tighten down 4 of the screws opposite each other. 2 here, 2 here. Keep pressure on that arm. Then tighten the rest of the screws down. You have to be careful when you're putting these screws in, as the diaphragm will tend to pull up underneath, and it'll get caught underneath this casting. So what you have to do is push down, and while you're pushing down, it's pushing the diaphragm up and spreading out the holes, and it'll line up. And tighten them down. Get 4 of them tightened down, and then you can release the pressure off it. Once that's done, tighten down all the rest of the screws. Once all those screws are tightened, now you can test it. You should have air coming out and suction on the other side. And that works too. And you know what? You're done. Everything's in. Diaphragm's all where it's supposed to be. We have suction, we have pressure. Same thing with the fuel side. We have suction, we have pressure. Put your gasket on. This baby's ready. Now it's ready. I hope this video helped someone. Like I said earlier, call it in by part number that's stamped on the flange. Now the only thing left to do is to fill this up with JB Weld and fill up the hole on the other side. If you liked it, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, subscribe, comment, do whatever you want. Thanks for watching.